here are my 3,000 points of Orcs. So, leading them, we have a War Boss with Power Claw and Lucky Stick and a big shooter, a big mech with a custom Mega Blaster, and a Pain Boy stock, so nothing on him. And accompanying them on the ground, we've got 4 squads of boys here down the front. 2 of them have knobs with power claws here and here, and 2 of them have knobs with big choppers here and here. They also have 2 big shooters in each of them to give them a little bit of range. Other than that, they're all slugger and chopper boys. Bringing up some of the heavy support, we have 2 units of killer cans. They are armed as is, so that's basically at the back row, rocket launcher, heavy shooter, or sorry, big shooter I should say, Grotzuka, and at the front, Grotzuka, rocket launcher, and a Scorcher. We have a Morkanaut stock. The only upgrades he's got are the Grot Riggers, extra armour, and the custom force field. And then in the front here we have 3 Death Dreads, consisting of 1 with the 2 power claws and big shooter, 1 with 4 power claws, and 1 with 2 power claws, rocket launcher, and Scorcher. And then for air support we have 3 flyers, 1 burner bomber with 4 Scorcher missiles attached to it, and 2 Blitzer bombers with normal upgrades, nothing else on them. And then finally over here the big guy, Stomper, he's just been given Grot Riggers and he hasn't taken any additional super rockets, so he's got his normal company of 3. So there's my 3,000 points of Orcs, and obviously that is Unbound / Apocalypse list, because it's got to that point level where I couldn't quite fit it into, I think I did a couple of detachments, but to be honest it didn't matter really, it's just a bit of a game. So finally the Warlord trait for my War Boss was Might is Right, so he has got +1 strength to his characteristics, his strength characteristic. So we'll see how they fare.
Hello, it's Dom from BlackToad Studios, and here is my 3,000 points of Astra Militarum, and it's actually a combined arms detachment, and it's a bound army, so it's 3,000 points. Let's have a look what I've got here. So starting at the front here, I've got my HQ squad. I've got a basic command squad here with 2 flamers, a missile launcher, and my leader there's got a power fist. Right, so moving on to my troop sections, I've got a platoon over here. Platoon HQ with a sniper rifle, a melter gun, and an auto gun. 2 squads of guardsmen, both armed with melter guns. 2 missile launcher squads. That's 1 troop choice. Over here I've got a squad of veterans with 3 flamers on foot. Moving on to my elite, I have got 3 squads of stormtroopers, all mounted up in the Orks primes with volley guns. Also got auto cannons. All squads have got 2 hotshot volley guns in there, so a nice little kick to them. Moving on to my fast choice. Down here I've got Devil Dog with a multi-melter, very nice, very quick, very deadly. Behind here I've got my heavy choice. So I've got one tank squadron here with demolisher cannons. 1 here with exterminators with, 1 exterminator and 1 punisher. And 1 back here, both exterminators, and both of these have got heavy bolter sponsons. So very nice. And finally, my Lord of War, I've got a Baneblade. So this should be heading up against that horrible old Stomper and causing some nasty damage. So, my Warlord trait is Staunch Traditionalist, which means in challenges, my sergeants, most probably, get to reroll their hits and wounds. So it could be quite interesting against the Orcs. Might actually survive some challenges. We will see. So that's my 3,000 points. And let's have a look at the battlefield and the mission. Right, so it's part 4 of the Gorgan IV campaign. And the Imperial forces have landed on the moon of the planet, and they have discovered the Orc forces here have amassed and are ready for invasion once more to claim the planet for the WoW. But they have constructed a Stomper, a beast of war, so the Imperial forces have waited. They've bided their time, and they've brought up the Baneblade to fight against the dreaded war machine. As they waited, the Orc forces massed on the edge of the facility, ready for the Imperial attack, ready to crush the last resistance before they can claim the planet. And the Imperial forces are here to crush the dreaded Xenos. So let's have a look at the mission and deployment. So our mission today, with objectives around the battlefield here at key locations. We're doing a custom mission today where at the beginning of each of our turns we roll a d6. We then pick that many tactical objective cards. We have to claim them as quickly as we can, because at the end of the turn we discard the cards down to 3. So it's a very up and down game. Hopefully could be quite interesting, quite experimental. This represents that both chains of command are in confusion and disarray, possibly down to the large amount of comms on the battlefield on both sides, and the Orcs are getting themselves into a frenzy. So it's pure chaos on this battlefield. So we will see who will strike first. Currently the Orcs will be taking the first attack. Let's have a look if the Guard can seize. They do! Guard going first. Right, turn 1 movement for the Imperial Guard. And we have drawn Big Game Hunter here. We have drawn Recon. We've got Behind Enemy Lines. We have drawn Storm of Fire. So that's score 1 victory point at the end of your turn if at least 1 enemy unit was completely destroyed during your shooting phase. Score D3 points instead if at least 3 enemy units were completely destroyed, or D3 plus 3 if 6 or more enemy units were completely destroyed. Okay. Rather optimistic. And over here we have overwhelming numbers, so that's score 1 point at the end of your turn if you control more objective markers than your opponent. If you control at least 3 more objective markers than your opponent, score D3 victory points instead. So very interesting, a nice challenge. Let's have a look to see where the Imperial forces have moved. Turn 1 movement for the Imperial Guard, and the battlefield is alive as tracks and boots hit the ground, charging across the field towards the Xeno threat. It's looking pretty amazing at the moment. So the Tempestus platoon here, they've all pushed up in the Orks primes. They have now claimed this objective here in the middle of this depot, objective 6. Back here, this missile team are on objective 2. There is nothing there of interest at the moment. The Baneblade has pushed up slowly there alongside this squad of veterans and the 2 Lehman Russ exterminators there. Back here, the commander orders from a distance, coordinating his forces. This squad also of missiles just within order range there. These 2 Lehman Russes backing away nervously as they look across the battlefield and see the Stomper staring down at them. The 2 Demolishers here pushing up with their cannons ready to fire upon this monstrous threat, and also capturing objective number 3 here with the Grav Wave. Over here the infantry squads are pushing up alongside the Devil Dog, also aiming towards the Stomper, hoping to slow it down in some way. So that is movement. Let's see what the Imperial forces can do in their shooting phase. Turn 1 shooting for the Imperial Guard. And what a turn. So these 3 here pushed up. The volley guns and autocannons fired at the Orc mob over here, taking heavy casualties. They're still holding their ground. They're currently fearless due to being in range of the Stomper, I believe. This one over here, he fired his Gatling cannon and autocannon in there, and I think he only killed 1, which was a little bit of a shame. Over here, the Baneblade fired his main cannon over towards the Gorgonaut and caused a bit of damage there, also to the Dreadnought, which was in front. The Dreadnought was then finished off by the Demolisher cannon, and from this tank here, both firing in and destroying the Dreadnought, giving the Imperial Guard first blood in this conflict. Over here, these two Leman Russes also fired in. They fired over towards the kill cans, completely wiping out one and knocking off a whole point of another one. These rockets over here fired up also towards the Gorkanaut, taking another whole point or two, which has been quite handy, knocking it down slowly. Over here, unfortunately, both demolishers fired over towards the Stomper. One getting a direct hit and taking a whole point, the other one scattering off and killing one loose Orc boy who was staggering behind. Elsewhere, these guardsmen charge forwards in front of the tanks to give us some weak form of protection, and the Devil Dog also fired both guns, one getting a hit and the other one scattering off wildly. So a mixed result for the first few shots for the Imperial Guard. There's not going to be an assault this turn, and let's now move on to see what the Imperial forces have done at the end of their turn one. Right, so at the end of turn one for the Imperial forces, and we've had a pretty good result. We have got ourselves Storm of Fire, so we took out the Death Dread there. We also got First Blood for that, which is quite handy. But knocking out the Death Dread, we also got ourselves a Big Game Hunter there, so that's 3 points straight away. And then we've got Overwhelming Numbers, so we have knocked the Orcs off their one objective they were holding, the Orc boys, and we are currently holding 3 objectives, so we get D3. Here we go. 3. Nice. So that is 6-0 to the Imperial forces. So far, a good start. Let's see what the Orcs can do in their turn one. Turn 1 movement for the Orcs, and they have rolled a 5, so they've drawn 5 cards this turn. And Tom has drawn Secure Objective 2, Secure Objective 4, Secure Objective 1, Supremacy, and Blood and Guts. So the Orcs are all over the battlefield wanting to cause a little bit of destruction, but mainly sees those important positions on the battlefield. So let's have a look to see where the Orc forces have moved. As you can imagine, the Orc forces have pushed up. They're not going to get shot anymore. They have moved their forces forwards towards the Imperial attackers. This Dreadnought has stumbled over the defence line there, followed by this mob of Orcs. Over here, the kill cans are pushing up towards the Taurox Primes and towards the big juicy Baneblade that is there sitting in the middle of the battlefield, causing chaos. These Orcs that took a serious amount of pain and firepower previously are currently sitting on the objective, holding the line, followed here by the Gorkanaut, which has slowly moved itself around to face off against the threats of the Imperial armour. This Dreadnought here has moved up into this ruined building. Hopefully it's going to be trying to push towards the armour there as well. The Orc mob back here with the War Boss is holding ground, waiting to see what happens. The Stomper though is charged forwards with its unnatural speed. He is charged towards its attackers and towards the Imperial tanks here. Closely followed by this squadron of kill cans that are pushing through the ruins, also followed by this Orc mob. It's going to be nasty. Let's move on to shooting turn 1 for the Orcs. Turn 1 shooting for the Orc forces, and really the Orcs fired wildly as they charged towards the Imperial forces, unable to cause many hits, let alone any damage. So over here, nothing really happened. Nothing happened here, but the Stomper fired its massive cannon over towards the Leman Russ squadron and destroyed the Demolisher there, sending shards of shrapnel everywhere, hitting the squad of guardsmen who were also punished by the heavy shooters from this beast. The squad then fled. Over here, the Devil Dog took damage from the kill cans who were pushing up through this terrain here, causing it to snap fire next turn, but still a worrying prospect for the future. We're now going to move on to turn 1 assault for the Orcs to see if they can get in and cause some damage on the Umis. Turn 1 assault for the Orcs, and the only thing that was in range and able to do anything was this Stomper, who was going to crash over towards the Leman Russ squadron here. Unfortunately though, they needed an 11 but got a 5, so nothing happened. It was worth the risk and worth the opportunity, but unfortunately, as it goes, nothing happened. So we're going to move on to see what happened at the end of turn 1 for the Orc forces. Right, so the end of turn 1 for the Orcs, and the Orcs have seized objective 1. They have seized objective 4. They were unable to take objective 2. They were also unable to score blood and guts and unable to score supremacy. So Orcs have currently got 2 points, Imperial have got 6, and the Orcs have decided to disregard objective 2. So let's see what happens in turn 2 for the Imperial forces. Turn 2 movement for the Imperial Guard, and the Stormtroopers here have fallen back behind this barricade, still in the Orks primes, lining up some shots for the Orcs that are going to be pouring across that defence line in a moment. The other squad of Scions though, they have pushed forwards, they have disembarked, and they are going to shoot their way onto this key objective here and hold it for as long as they possibly can. The Leman Russes here have moved up for a better line of fire onto the kill cans, hoping to back up the Scions and destroy the threat. Over here, this squad of veterans are pushing up now towards the centre. We're going to find out what is so important about this objective and reveal it for recon. This squadron here of Leman Russes is pushing up as well to provide a bit of fire onto those kill cans, hoping some of the Punisher rounds can glance and knock off the remaining hull points. Over here though, the Leman Russ is holding its ground. It's lining up its shot to fire another demolisher round towards that beast. The Devil Dog, stunned but still able to snap fire, is holding there and hoping to snap fire into that creature. These guardsmen, rightly so perhaps, are falling back still, not wanting to stand in the way of that Lord of War. So that is movement. Let's see what the Imperial forces can do in turn 2 shooting. Turn 2 shooting for the Imperial Guard, and the squad of Scions here, as well as the Orks Prime, fired into the Orc mob here, completely wiping them off the battlefield. Also, the Gorgan, being a threat, was targeted by one las cannon and demolisher cannon from the Baneblade. It was also fired at by this Leman Russ with a las cannon shot, as well as the auto cannon. We took one hull point off, leaving it on 1, unfortunately unable to kill it. Over here, the 2 exterminators fired into the kill cans, taking one off the battlefield and reducing the other one down to 1 hull point, leaving it staggering. Over here, the 2 Orks Primes fired their Gatler cannons into the Orcs, killing 4 of their number off and pushing them slightly further back off of the defence line. The 2 rocket squads based back here also fired at the Gorkanor, unable to do any damage as a shield protected it from most of the arsenal. Over here, the main cannon from the Baneblade fired across the battlefield, targeting the one Orc that was holding a flare, and decimated this squad. This squad of Orcs is just being reduced dramatically down to 5 boys. The Warboss and the Pain Boys are killing 15 off. The Stomper also took a hull point, and it was a pretty nice shot, if I do say so myself. Over here, the squad of veterans pushed up towards the middle, finding a targeting relay among the ruins. Over here, the Devil Dog snap fired into the beast, unable to hit it as it was still shaken from its damage. The Demolisher Cannon fired in and stripped off another hull point off the Stomper, reminding the Stomper that the Demolisher is still a threat. So that is it for turn 2 shooting for the Imperial Guard. We're going to move on to see what the Guardsmen have scored at the end of their turn 2. Right, so at the end of turn 2 for the Imperial Guard, we have now scored Recon as the squad in the centre were able to discover the targeting relay. We have scored behind enemy lines with the Scions pushing up through the end and just being able to score behind enemy lines there. Hold your ground. Half my forces are still in the deployment thanks to the rocket squads, platoon and slow moving tanks really. And secure objective 4. The Scions have secured objective 4 after pushing the Orcs off. So the Imperial Guard are now on 10 points to the Orcs 2. Let's see what the Orcs can do in their turn 2. Turn 2 for the Orcs, and the Orcs are after blood. They've got blood and guts. They've got supremacy. They've got no prisoners. They've got assassinate. They've got demolitions and behind enemy lines. So it's going to be bloody. The Orcs really want to get in combat here. Once they get in combat, the points are going to come racking up, and the Orcs, hopefully for the Orcs' sake, turn the tide. But we will see if we move on now to turn 2 movement for the Orcs. Also. Turn 2 movement for the Orcs, and the war boss has called a wah! And the Orc forces have now pushing up towards the squishy guardsmen. So this squad of Orc boys are now moving over to re-secure objective 4 and capture it from the Militarum Tempestus here. Over here, this kill cannon is pushing up through the middle still. He is heading towards the Imperial armour, hoping to cause some damage. The Orc first sign of air support has flown on. The Blitzer, the burner bomber has flown on and is targeting the Imperial HQ at the back to hopefully cut the head off this Imperial juggernaut. This Death Dread is pushing up through the ruins here. It's Scorcher lighting, ready to set fire to these veterans as they come through the ruins. Over here, the Gorgan is straddled along. He is now targeting possibly a Torx Prime, or towards the veterans, or towards the Scions, depending how he feels. The Stomper, being a Stomper, has pushed up here onto the tower. He is targeting anything along this line. It's going to be deadly, whatever he fires at this turn. And finally, over here, this Orc force, which has been pretty much left untouched, is still pushing up through the ruins here, almost unnoticed towards this squad of guardsmen and the Devil Dog. So we're now going to move on to shooting for the Orcs to see if they can cause any damage. Turn 2 shooting for the Orcs, and this big squad of boys charged in, getting ready to assault as the Orcs have called their war. They're ready to assault and spill blood in combat. Over here, the Gorganauts, as well as the Death Dread, fired into the squad of veterans, killing all of them but the sergeant who went to ground. So he's trying to score an assassinate and kill off some of these officers to cause the Imperial forces to flee. The Stomper also fired his heavy shooters in, unable really to do any more damage, but as I say, the one veteran who's gone to ground there, he's holding the line. The main cannon here from the Stomper fired over towards the Imperial armour, taking 2 hull points off this Leman Russ, but leaving the others untouched. The Scorcher also fired into these Leman Russes. Bit of an opportunist shot, but a shot nonetheless, but of course was unable to do anything there. The main thing for the Orcs though this turn was the burner bomber fired its missiles into the Imperial command, setting them alight and turning them to ash. So the Orcs have killed off the HQ from the Imperial Guard, and maybe a deadly strike. We will see. We're going to move on now to turn 2 assault for the Greenskins and see if they can cause some horrible damage in combat. Turn 2 assault for the Orcs, and this mob charged in. The sergeant from the Scions issued a challenge and was able to do 1 wound to the knob, but then the power claw struck and decapitated the sergeant, leaving the rest of the Scions in disarray, and were butchered then by the rest of the Orc band there. The only other bit of combat here was the Stomper charging in to this Leman Russ squadron and completely obliterating them before they're able to maneuver out the way, causing the rest of the army to fall into disarray. Very devastating. So we're now going to move on to see what the Orcs have done in their turn 2. See if they're able to turn the tides. End of turn 2 for the Orcs, and the Orcs have scored behind enemy lines with the Stomper, Assassinate, Blood and Guts. They've also scored No Prisoners and Supremacy, which are both D3 ones. Tom, do you want to roll for No Prisoners?
Yeah, so
3 points.
somewhat.
And for Supremacy, 1 point. Right, okay, so the Orcs were on 2 points. And so they've now got 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, and for Warlord Kill, 10. It's 10 all at the moment. It is a draw in the end of turn 2. We're now going to move on to turn 3 and see what the Imperial Guard can do. Also, Tom is going to be discarding Demolitions. So let's see what Guard can do in their turn 3. Turn 3 for the Imperial Guard, and as the command structure is falling apart, we are ordered to secure Objective 5 twice, secure Objective 4, Domination and Demolitions. Imperial Guard are falling apart. Let's see what we've done in our turn 3 movement. Turn 3 movement for the Imperial Guard, and over here this Torx Prime has roared through the crates here, disembarked the Scions, which are now going to be raining fire down upon this Orc warband. This Torx Prime, as well as this Torx, will be firing their autocannons into this Death Dread here, which is an imposing threat. Rocket squads here have moved around. They're going to be snap firing shots also into the Death Dread, hope to killing it off with some crack love. Over here, the Baneblade has pivoted round. It's going to fire 2 heavy bolters, hopefully. Over there, the rest of its guns are going to be selected throughout the battle line here. There's a lot of targets and it's quite concerning. These 2 Leman Russes have pivoted round to lay down some fire on this Death Dread as the Torx Prime has torn through this ruin to secure Objective 5. Over here, the remaining forces are getting together and they're going to lay some fire into the back of the Stomper, hoping to slow it down, maybe even destroy it. We will see. So we're now going to move on to turn 3 shooting for the Imperial Guard, and let's see what we can do. Turn 3 shooting for the Imperial Guard, and over here both these Leman Russes and the Torx Prime fired into the Death Dread, destroying it, leaving the objective open for the Torx Prime to seize. Over here, the Baneblade fired its las cannon over towards the Death Dread, unable to do anything there. The heavy bolters fired into the kill can, destroying the kill can. Demolisher cannon also fired over there, but was unable to do anything to the Death Dread before it blew up. The heavy bolter here fired up into the air. Nothing. He hasn't jinked. But the damage was taken on this burner bomber. Took 2 hull points from the Gatling cannon over here, which fired up into the air, twin linked, hitting on 6s and glancing on 6s, and did 2 hull points. So that's not too bad. But the Baneblade cannon fired over here into the Orcs, but it's scattered over here into the Stomper, doing 1 hull point there. The rest of these forces saw the opportunity and also fired everything they had, fired autocannons, crack grenades, melter guns, everything fired, taking the Stomper down to 3 hull points. So it is drastically damaged there. And finally over here we had this squad of Scions here fire into the Orcs, killing off plenty of their number. The 2 Primes fired into the Death Dread, immobilising it and taking it down a hull point. So that is it for turn 3 for the Imperial Guard. Let's see what we have scored at the end of turn 3. End of turn 3 for the Imperial Guard, and we have secured Objective 5 twice with the Torx Prime that charged through the building. We are going to be discarding Demolitions, So the score is now 12-10 to the Imperial Guard. It's very close. We're going to move on to turn 3 for the Orcs and see what they can do. Turn 3 for the Orcs, and the War Boss has issued his orders. He wants Objective 5 secured and taken away from the Imperial forces which are holding the middle. So the Orcs are bound to make a big move for that objective. We're going to move on to turn 5 movement for the Orcs, and let's see what they can do. Turn 3 movement for the Orcs, and the air support has come on. These 2 Dakar jets have flown on, both doing bombing strikes. So this one here dropped a bomb over here, taking 1 hull point and immobilising the Orks Prime. This one, however, tried to bomb the Scions, but on its bombing run there, it clipped the squad. Probably also clipped the Bastion because it did no damage to the Scions, but took a hull point and is now locked velocity for the rest of the game. Not good. Rest of the Orcs there, pushing up along the battle line, coming towards this defence line to assault the Scions behind. The War Boss's orders have been heard, and the Gorgan here is charging in to secure Objective 5 and take it from the Orks Prime. The Stomper, however, has poured through the ruined tanks and now is heading towards the Baneblade. Knowing his time is up, he's going to charge in and hopefully, for his sake, destroy it before it's too late. Over here, the Orc forces are pushing up, trying to defend the Stomper from the constant rear attack from these anti-armour troops, and the kill cans are pushing up through the ruins. The Orcs are stumbling over claymores and booby traps and slowly moving up. But this is looking pretty intense at the moment. We're now going to move on to shooting for turn 3 for the Orcs and see how much damage they can do. Turn 3 shooting for the Orcs, and over here the Gorgan fired into the Orks Prime, ripping it apart and wrecking it there. So they have now captured Objective 5 once more from the Imperial forces. Over here, the Orcs have fired lots of slugger shots and heavy shooter shots into the Scions head, killing 2 off. Another 2 were killed off by the Stomper, who fired his heavy shooters over here into the squad. The Dreadnought here, which is still immobile, fired its heavy shooter into the missile squad, causing damage and causing the remaining members of the teams to fall back. Over here though, the Dakar jet fired in, or sorry, the Blitzer bomber fired in and immobilised this poor old Orks Prime. The Orks Prime was also then hit by the main cannon from the Stomper. So it also took another hull point there. It's currently only on 1 and immobilised. The damage also reflected back onto the Baneblade, taking a hull point off of there. The Scorcher from the Stomper fired onto this Lehman Russ squadron, not doing any damage, but once again it's an opportunity, it may as well. And finally over here, the kill cans charged forwards. The Orcs are still running through the ruins, although by look of they're placing, they're in slight disarray at the moment, they're facing everywhere. And finally the War Boss here is still pushing up here. It's probably going to try and engage the Devil Dog in combat. So it's looking pretty close at the moment. We're going to see how it pans out now in turn 3 assault for the Orcs. Turn 3 assault for the Orcs, and the War Boss charged in, destroying the Devil Dog. Unfortunately for him though, 2 of his boys died from shrapnel as it went flying everywhere, and a couple of these guardsmen also perished. The melter gun unfortunately being one of them there. Over here, the Stomper carried on its chaotic rampage and destroyed the 2 Lehman Russes in front of it. It's now killed 4 tanks, I think. It's pretty devastating. And finally over here, the Orcs charged in. The sergeant of the squad issued a challenge and was able to decapitate the knob and killed another Orc in combat. So it's pretty good going at the moment. The Orcs were unable really to do much. They killed 1 Scion and then they passed their leadership to prevent them fleeing. So very close. We're going to have a look now to see what the Orcs have scored at the end of their turn 3. Right, so at the end of turn 3 for the Orcs, they have secured objective 5 once again, and the score is now 12-11 to the Imperial Guard. We're going to move on now to turn 4 for the Imperial Guard to see if they can push themselves a little bit further. Right, turn 4 for the Imperial Guard forces, and we've got secure objective 1 twice, secure objective 2 twice, secure objective 4, secure objective 3, and we still have domination here. So there is a lot of stuff across the battlefield we've got to try and capture. Let's see what the Imperial Guard forces can do with what we have left. Turn 4 movement for the Imperial Guard, and this squad of Scions have disembarked from the Orks Prime, which has been immobilised, and they're now sitting on objective 2 here, quite happily securing it at the rear. The Baneblade has pivoted round. It's got no choice now, but it has to target this major threat that's looming over them, and hopefully it'll be able to destroy it. Although the Stomper has moved past this squad of missiles that are now pointing nicely at the rear armour and hoping they can be able to do something to this beast before it's too late. Elsewhere on the battlefield, forces are pretty depleted. Most of the Orks Primes are now immobile. Pulling over here to the remnant forces, this squad of 5 are just sitting on objective 3 there, and they're going to lay down some fire onto the war boss and his remaining squad members. This squad here is also going to lay down some firepower, hopefully, onto the Orc war boss, and the Demolisher is switching between targets at the moment. It's either towards the war boss to kill him outright, or towards a Stomper, but we will see what happens in turn 4 shooting. Turn 4 shooting for the Imperial Guard, and these guys fired their las guns into the war boss here. Did 1 wound to him, and he felt no pain as well, which was quite handy, but the main bit of damage came from over here. The Baneblade cannon fired, hoping to kill off the war boss, but we targeted the kill cans. We destroyed 1 kill can and immobilised these 2. We then killed off one of the Orc boys there. Unfortunately though, we did not kill the war boss, and we weren't unable to kill the 2 kill cans, which is a bit of a shame. The Demolisher cannon here, it was a hard choice between firing at the war boss and firing at the Stomper. The Stomper was on 2 hull points after taking a lot of damage from the bits on the Baneblade there. But we decided to go against firing at the war boss and hoping to get a 6 on the damage table and kill it off when it was on 2 hull points. Unfortunately we didn't, but it's down to 1 hull point, so it's very close to death. But unfortunately for the Imperial Guard, it's still going and it will be charging into the Baneblade. I've got no doubt about that. The rocket teams also fired in, unable to do anything against this monstrosity, and now they are probably going to watch as it charges into the relic Baneblade there. The 2 Orks Primes fired both their Gatling cannons up into the air at both of these flyers. We're able to do 1 bit of damage onto this one here, but nothing on there, and neither of them jinked. Tom has got a death wish. Unfortunately for the Imperial forces, it paid off this time, and the flyers are still flying around like loons. We're going to move on to Assault now to see if this squad of Scions down here can beat back the Orcs and hold the barricade. Turn 4 Assault, and the Scions were able to kill off 2 of the Orcs. Unfortunately, though, 1 was cut down, and we're still holding the line just about, and the Orcs have passed another morale check, so the fight continues. That is the only bit of assault in turn 4 for the Astra Militarum. We're going to just check to see what we have scored and see what's happening. Right, so the end of turn 4 for the Imperial forces, and we have scored secure objective 2 with the squads of Scions, and secure objective 3 with the remaining guardsmen. So that has put us now onto 15 11, I believe, to the Imperial Guard. It's very close. We will see what happens now in turn 4 for the Orcs. But just so you know, I will be discarding Domination. Right, Tom has just rolled a 1 for the amount of objectives he's getting this turn, and he's got Z's objective 2. So I'm not sure he's able to do this one this turn, but the Orcs, of course, are going to be on a bloody rampage for the rest of the turn. So moving on to turn 4 movement for the Orcs, and let's see what they're doing. Turn 4 movement for the Orcs, and this Blitzer Bomber here is flying off the board. But on his way out, he dropped a bomb and killed off 5 of the Scions there in some sort of vengeful attack. If they can't take objective 2, they'll try and bomb it. The Scions, though, they did pass their leadership and they are holding on to the objective there. Over here, similar story. Dropped his bomb, but unfortunately the bomb is gone flying off the battlefield, and he is also just leaving the battlefield as well. Elsewhere. Oh, sorry, Mr. Stomper here has come round the side. He is now looking at the side armour and he's picking his targets wisely. We will see what he gets up to. I've got a feeling he might try and take objective 2. Could be interesting. Over here, the war boss is currently flanking round. He's trying to get closer to the Demolisher to do some horrible damage, no doubt, to slow down the Imperial advance and maybe claim a bit of glory and some Imperial Guard helms for his belt. Gorgan is now relocating, coming over to join the war boss in his assault on the Demolisher. And finally, the Blitzer Bomber, not the Blitzer Bomber, Burner Bomber, sorry, is back on the battlefield and is flying low through these ruins, hoping to cause some damage without being shot down. So it's all very interesting at the moment. We're going to move on now to turn 4 shooting to see if the Orcs can beat back the Guardsmen. Turn 4 shooting for Orcs, and this squad of boys ran through the ruins here, getting a good run. Now slowly pushing through finally. The Burner Bomber here fired its shooters down onto the squad of 5 guardsmen, as well as the kill cans here, and the Gorgan fired in and finally killed the 5 guardsmen, leaving these squad of 3 almost by themselves. Over here, the Stomper fired in. It fired its death cannon into the squad of Scions, killing most of them and then finishing them off with the heavy shooters. The Scorcher also firing at the Baneblade, but of course not able to do anything, but still firing because he's an insane Orc. We're now going to move on to Assault, where I've got a feeling he may be assaulting the Baneblade at long last. And we will see what happens. So moving on to turn 4, Assault for the Orcs. Turn 4, Assault for the Orcs, and it was unbelievable. The Stomper charged in. He did one whole point with his Hammer of Wrath, but then he failed to hit, and then he got 1 through and got a 1. So nothing for the Stomper, and the Baneblade is still standing. Unbelievable. Spurred on by that dramatic scene, the Scions over here were able to kill off 2 more Orcs and survived the returning blows, causing the remaining Orc there to flee off the battlefield, hopefully. But unfortunately, the Emperor does not protect all, and the war boss charged into the Demolisher and blew it up. So it was very 50-50. We're going to see if the Orcs were able to complete any of their objectives this turn. So the end of turn 4 for Orcs, and of course the Orcs had to seize objective 2, but unfortunately they were unable to do this. So the score is currently sitting on 15-12 to the Imperial Guard. We're moving on to turn 5 for the Guard and see if they can maintain this lead. Right, so turn 5 for the Astra Militarum forces, the Imperial Guard, and we have rolled a 5, so our objectives have gone up to 8 at the beginning of this turn. We've got Armoured Assault, so score 1 point at the end of your turn if at least one enemy unit was completely destroyed during your turn by unit with the tank unit type. So it's getting quite hard now, as most of the Leman Russes are destroyed. We're going to have to rely on the Orks Prime that's remaining to kill off that fleeing Orc, possibly. Strength in Unity, so score 1 point if you successfully issued at least 3 orders. If you successfully issued 6, get D3 points. Unfortunately, I've only got 1 command squad left and he can only issue 1, so that's not going to happen. Fixed Bayonets, score 1 point at the end of your turn if 1 or more Astra Militarum units made a successful charge during your turn. That's possible. We've got Secure Objective 6, Secure Objective 1, Secure Objective 6 again, Secure Objective 1 again, and Secure Objective 4. So a nice selection. Astra Militarum are slowly holding on. We've got limited resources left, and we're going to see what we can do now in our turn 5 movement. Turn 5 movement for the Imperial Guard, and this squad of Scions have broken through the barricade now. We're heading down towards the fleeing Orc, and hopefully we'll be able to kill him off. Possibly we're going to try and shoot him there with the Orks Prime and get 1 point there. Maybe these guys are going to make a run here towards Objective 4 with a decent roll. We would be able to achieve that and hold the ground over here. The remaining guardsmen, they're moving out of the way. This platoon command have fallen back slightly. This squad of guardsmen has also fallen back, fleeing away from the war boss. But what could they possibly be moving out of the way for? But the Baneblade. The Baneblade has got the war boss down his sights, and he is aiming towards this threat. With his remaining firepower, it will be firing onto the Stomper, as well as this squad of missile launchers. We are taking this thing down this turn. There is no two ways about it. The Stomper has got to go before it's too late. The Emperor protected enough for the Baneblade to survive one onslaught. It will not be able to hold on for another. So we're going to move on to turn 5 shooting, and hopefully this thing will no longer be there. Turn 5 shooting for the Astra Militarum, and the Orks Prime here fired his Gatler into the fleeing Orc and completely obliterated where he was. It's just a red mist. The squad of Scions were heading towards this objective, but unfortunately they were unable to really get anywhere and then rolled a 1 on their charge. Unfortunately though, the main thing was Demolisher Cannon, las cannons, both fired. Somehow it's still alive. We hit the Demolisher Cannon, but we're unable to penetrate. We're on double 1s. We also had the 3 crack rockets back here, back here firing into the rear armour, all missed. And the Stomper is still going. This is definitely a worrying time for the Baneblade. Baneblade cannon fired over into the Orcs, into the war boss, killed off the Pain Boy, and did 1 wound with the autocannon onto the war boss there, but the war boss has gone to ground. He's a threat for a little bit longer, unfortunately. And that is our turn 5 shooting. There's going to be no assault, and we're going to move on to see what the Imperial Guard forces have done at the end of their turn 5. End of turn 5 for the Imperial Guard, and with the Orks Prime killing off the Orc, we've got Armoured Assault. We're also holding Objective 6 with that Orks Prime there. They've got immobilised sitting onto Objective 6. Let's have a look. There we go. Here he's still there. So that has now put the Astra Militarum onto 18. So it's now 18-12, a 6-point lead on the Orcs. Let's see what the Orcs can do in their turn 5. So just a recap here. At the end of my turn 5, I'm having to discard Objective 1 and Objective 1 there. So it puts me down to 3 cards. Let's move on to see what Orcs can do in their turn 5. Right, so Orcs turn 5, and Tom has drawn. He's got Secure Objective 3, Secure Objective 5, Secure Objective 6, secure objective 4, secure objective 3, overwhelming firepower, and secure objective 2. So a lot of moving around for the Orc forces. Really got to nail down the Astra Militarum and beat them to the ground. So let's move on to turn 5 movement and see what the Orcs have done. Turn 5 movement for the Orcs, and this squad of boys have finally got their way through the ruins in the final moments of this conflict. Will it be enough for them to win the day? The war boss, of course, is still pinned at the moment after going to ground, and the pain boy is now, his gore is splattered all over the war boss. This burner bomber is currently flying off of the battlefield, but he has dropped a bomb and he's killed 2 of the members of the platoon command squad there. Over here, the 2 jets have come onto the battlefield. They are now targeting the remaining members of the Militarum Tempestus to try and destroy them. And finally, the Stomper has come round. He is now sitting on objective 2. Really got to see if he's going to charge into the Baneblade or just hold the objective there. But we will find out in turn 5 shooting for Orcs. Turn 5 shooting for the Orcs, and these 2 jets fired into the Sarns, making short work of them and completely decimating that squad there. They went to ground, but unfortunately that wasn't enough. Over here, the Stomper holding ground at the moment. He's decided not to assault, and he has just shot into the Torx Prime, taking another hull point off of it and leaving it on 1. He did fire his main cannon over here into the missile squads, completely obliterating them. And finally over here, the 2 kill cans here fired into the squad of guardsmen, killing 1 off. These guys have gone to ground, and the war boss, although he was snap firing, fired 1 shot into the platoon commander and just decapitated him with 1 solid shot. So at the moment it is looking pretty close to the line. We're going to see what the Orcs have done in their turn 5. At the end of turn 5 for Orcs, and the Orcs have got secure objective 3, secure objective 5, secure objective 2, secure objective 3, overwhelming firepower. Tom's rolled a 2 for that, and he has currently got line breaker at the end of turn 5, so the score for both is 18. The reason Tom didn't assault with the Stomper is really because if he got off of objective 2 and went into the combat with the Baneblade, he would have lost. He wouldn't be able to secure objective 2, and so the game would have been a loss for the Orcs. So currently it's a draw. Both myself and Tom have decided to go for 1 more turn to see if we can have a decisive victory at the end of the campaign. So we're now going to move on to turn 6 for the Astra Militarum. So turn 6 movement for the Astra Militarum, and we have got hold the line. If at least 3 scoring units are within the deployment and none of the opponents. Unfortunately, we're unable to do that. We've only got 2 that can move and get into our deployment. Secure objective 4, also pretty unachievable at the moment. We've got no fast moving stuff to get there. Strength and unity, still unable to do that, but we've got fixed bayonets. We might be able to do that. So let's have a look at the rest of the movement and what I've done in turn 6 for the Astra Militarum. Turn 6 for Astra Militarum movement. Right, so the Baneblade has swiveled round. The main cannon and the las cannons are going to fire onto the Stomper. The Stomper at the end of turn 5 for the Orcs regained 1 hull point with the mech inside. The rest of the guns, we're going to fire over towards the war boss and try and get a warlord kill there. These boys here, guardsmen, are going to try an assault and see if we can get into combat there. So that is the plan at the moment. We're going to move on to turn 6 shooting for the Astra Militarum and hope the Emperor protects. Turn 6 shooting for the Imperial Guard, and what happened? The heavy bolters all fired into the war boss and took the remaining wound off. So we've got Warlord kill at least with that one. Although the main cannon fired, the last cannon's fired, and it's still alive. We did one hull point, so the Stomper is still staggering around. It's still a colossal beast and a major threat on the battlefield. Over here, the Gatler once again fired up into the air towards the fighter there and hit 5 times. No, hit 6 times, but I was unable to penetrate. And of course, Tom being Tom decided not to glance. Orc fighters are cheap and expendable. So that is it. We're going to move on to turn 6 assault for the Astra Militarum, and we're going to try and get these 2 guys into combat and see if they can score a point. Turn 6 assault for the Astra Militarum, and the guys were going to charge in. They needed a 6 to get in there, but unfortunately they only got 3, so we were unable to score fixed bayonets there. Going to move on to the end of turn 6 to see if we've scored anything. Right, turn 6 for the Astra Militarum. At the end of the turn we have scored none of these unfortunately, but we did get Warlord kills, so the score is now 19-18 to the Astra Militarum. Let's move on to turn 6 for the Orcs and see if they can capture. Turn 6 for the Orcs, and the Orcs have drawn Secure Objective 3, Secure Objective 5, Secure Objective 6, Domination, Secure Objective 4, and Hungry for Glory. So very easy ones for some of the Orcs there to do. It's not looking good for Guard. Let's see what the Orcs have done in their turn 6. Turn 6 movement for the Orcs, and this fighter's moving over here, probably trying to pin down the Taurox Prime that's mobile and destroy it once and for all. The Stomper though. The Stomper is angry. He is moving forwards towards the Baneblade there. Will it be enough to finish off this relic of the Imperium? And finally over here, this fighter is moving up. He's probably trying to do a strafing run here onto the 2 guardsmen. And the Orcs are finally pushing up to secure and hold Objective 3. So let's move on to turn 6 shooting for Orcs and see what they can do. Right, so turn 6 shooting, and the jet flew in and it completely decimated the last Taurox Prime down there. Not good. Over here, same again. The fighter came in and decimated the 2 guardsmen down there. So it is not looking good for the Imperial Guard. At the beginning of the shooting phase for the Orcs, the big mech regained 1 more hull point, which is, some would say, almost pointless now in turn 6. But the Orcs fired the main cannon in. The main cannon scattered. It landed back on the Stomper and it penetrated. So if the mech hadn't of generated his hull point, the Stomper would have blown itself up, which would have been brilliant. But unfortunately for the Guard, the big mech knew what was going to happen. Knew how this thing was getting piloted and decided to do a bit of repair work. So we're going to move on to turn 6 assault for the Orcs, and the only thing left for the Guard is of course the Baneblade. So let's see what happens. Right at the end of turn 6 assault for the Orcs, and the Stomper came in and he took 5 hull points off of the Baneblade, but left it on 1. These 2 are not meant to kill each other, and we will now move to the end of turn 6 for the Orcs and see what the Orcs have achieved. Right, so at the end of turn 6 for Orcs, and they have secured Objective 5 and they have secured Objective 3. So they have now put themselves on 20. And so it is an Orc victory at the end of the battle. So let's have a look at the battlefield and what has happened. So at the end of this conflict and at the end of the Gorgan IV campaign, the Orc forces have been triumphant and destroyed the Imperial forces on this planet. They have been able to break the back of the Imperial Guard, break the neck of the Militarum Tempestus, and they have now conquered this planet. Gorgan is now part of this great war, and the next lot of Imperial reinforcements are years away. Will the Imperium one day be able to return to this planet and claim it once more, or will the Orcs add this to their ever-growing empire? We will see. For now, I hope you've all enjoyed our campaign, and we'll be doing plenty more in the future. If you enjoyed this, please leave a comment below and give us a like, and we will see you next time.